Good morning, welcome back to my channel. So I thought because it is the end of June that it would be a good idea to give you some tips and tricks that I have found in my 20 plus years of having horses, what works for me. And with horses, you probably already know that one size does not fit all. It doesn't fit every owner or barn situation or anything like that. But I have about 15 things that I think could help pretty much almost anybody, but obviously work with your vet or your trainer if your horse has any dietary restrictions. That's Maya being silly. So obviously know what is best for you and your horse and your situation. If you have any questions or anything, contact your vet and or your trainer. So again, I'm going to go ahead and get started with about 15 things that I've found that works for me. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so one of the first ways that I would recommend trying to help your horse stay cool during the summer is going to be offer them shade. So whether it being you have a lot of like trees in your pasture. So I have a lot of trees, which isn't great for like trying to get grass to grow, but it does work out great in the summer with a lot of shade. It gives them a lot of space to still move around and get under a lot of trees. Another way is, if you can see this lean-to here to the barn, so if you have something like that in your pasture, just be it like a run-in or a small shed, the little carports you can buy, something that's obviously horse safe as much as possible, but give them an opportunity to get in out of the sun, especially horses that are more prone to melanomas and horses that are prone to sunburn. So if your horse has really light skin or pink skin or a pink nose, anything like that, you definitely want to make sure that you're able to offer them some type of sun protection, even if it is wearing like some type of like fly gear and stuff like that. So I'm going to kind of go into that a little bit later, but mainly you want to make sure that they are not getting sunburned. So give them an opportunity to get out of the sun if they choose to. Alvin sometimes will still lay flat in the sun and just suntan. He does not get nearly as hot as Maya. So that's another thing. If you have horses that are that are hot-blooded or that are very dark, they may get hotter than an average like chestnut or just a light colored bay. But that's probably one like big way, is to offer some shade to your horses. They also have on Amazon, and I think I've seen them on Tractor Supply, they run about $20. If I can find them, I will link them in the description down below. But basically, they're just sunshades. So you can tack them up, like, let me see if I can, like, you can tack them up here on this board and it will just drape down. You can also put them as like a canopy. So if you have a way to, like, I might have some like where I could like tack them to trees, or if you do have some type of lean-to already, but maybe like a certain time of day the sun just beats in it, you can hang this sunshade, or even put it as like a roof, for some type of shade. Anything is going to help them, especially where I live. The other day it was 3 o'clock and I want to say it was 99 degrees, and it's just ridiculous how hot it will get here. So obviously, offering your horse some shade is a big plus, but I'll go ahead and link the one that I found on Amazon in the description down below. I don't get any commission off of this or anything. It's just like recommendations of what I've found has helped. And so, yeah, I think shade's a good one, which is why it's my first tip right now. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next one. So number 2 is going to be, some people might laugh at this, but in the morning when the grass is really dewy, I will graze them on the grass so that the grass is wet, and that just kind of provides extra moisture in their gut, and they really seem to like it. So wet grass is a big one. If you want to feed them grass, like say like midday, you can go ahead and like hose the grass where you're going to be grazing them, and then come graze your horse on it. And it, like, obviously wet grass is going to give them more moisture in their diet. So I know that one's kind of silly, it's a really quick one, but I found that my horses really love the taste of the wet grass. So go ahead and feed them some wet grass, and that adds them some extra moisture into their diet. That kind of rolls into the third one. So if you feed your horse any type of grain, even if they are on a forage-based diet, you know, like if you feed like alfalfa pellets or anything like that, I wet my horse's feed in the morning and at night in the summer and the winter. So all year. In the winter, I'll add a little bit of warmer water to it and kind of make like a warm mash, and they really seem to like it. But you know, if you think about it, in the winter, we have a hard time getting them to drink as much as we would usually want them to. Maya's being silly for the camera. So basically, you know, we want them to add more moisture into their diet. So feeding them like wet grain, the wet forage-based diet, anything like that, that's obviously going to help them consume more water. So again, in the winter, they don't drink as much because they're not hot. So that's why I added in the winter. And then in the summer, we want them to drink more. So that's why I added in the summer. So again, this is just preference. If your horse does not like wet feed, then obviously this wouldn't work for you. But Maya and Alvin do not seem to mind it. They like it a lot. I will wet it and kind of let it sit for just a few minutes before I feed it to them, so it's not like so full of moisture. But you know, overall they really seem to like the extra water in their feed. Okay, so 3 and 4 kind of go hand in hand, but if you feed your horse hay, which a lot of people do obviously, if your horse will eat it, you can soak the hay before giving it to them. And obviously you want to make sure you monitor it once you do wet it. You don't want it to spoil if they don't consume it all. So you do have to keep an eye on that. But if you soak the hay, it actually does, there's kind of like mixed reviews, but there's some studies out there that say that soaking hay for at least 30 minutes will reduce the sugar content in the hay. So if you have a horse that may have like Cushing's or something like that, this might help you reduce the sugar in your hay. Obviously you don't really know exactly what your sugar content is in your hay unless you get it tested. But that's not something that's always readily available to everybody, and sometimes you know, get like a few bales at a time, so you may not know if it's the same batch all the time. So, you know, soaking the hay, again, some people say it works, some people don't say it works. So basically it's just up to you if you want to do that. But soaking the hay in general is going to add, again, some extra moisture to their diet. The next thing is going to be if you feed alfalfa. So obviously take into account your horse's diet and any restrictions that they may have. So alfalfa is very like high calorie. So for Alvin, other than like a small handful just as a treat, because if I don't have a chance to graze them, they get just hay. So I'll just give him a little handful of alfalfa. And honestly, I try not to give it to him all the time, because he's a mini and they literally will get fat on air. So it is true. So you have to kind of monitor, you know, like what is your horse's diet, if they have any restrictions, stuff like that. But if you feed alfalfa, if you feed the pellets, obviously you can soak the pellets. The alfalfa cubes, you can soak those. I get the bale of alfalfa, and when I wet it, Maya loves that. So again, that's just another way that you can add water into their diet, is actually soaking the forage that you feed them. So if this works for you, great. It's another way to add water into their diet. If it's not, I have some more coming to you. Okay, so another tip that I have is to always provide extra salt / electrolytes to your horse's diet. So Maya and Alvin have the Himalayan salt that hangs on a rope in their stalls. There are tons of options out there as far as adding electrolytes, something to your horse's diet to help them drink more and to replace what they actually sweat out. So that's a big one, is making sure that they have the correct amount of electrolytes in their diet and any type of salt. Another thing that I have found that is helpful is going to be adding something like Gallagher's Water. So I actually met the owner of Gallagher's Water about a year ago when I was riding with a farrier to learn how to trim feet. But basically it comes in this little packet, and you can buy them in singles like locally where I live, but obviously buying like the bag of it, it's $30, and I think you get 20 of these. So what you do is you empty this, and it's just like green powder, and you add 2 gallons of water. And in the winter, I will take that and actually add a little bit of warm water so that, again, they drink some more. And also, after a workout, or if they are running in the pasture a lot during the day, I will give them that. Basically, what this is just a all-natural equine hydration beverage. So basically, it's like horse Gatorade, but it's got like alfalfa in it. It has salt and stuff like that. So basically replacing any electrolytes. And again, it's with the 2 gallons of water, I mean, you're getting a good amount of water into their system. So I highly recommend something like that. Like Gallagher's water is a good one. Like I said, this is what I use. This is the only one I've ever tried just because they are local. This isn't sponsored or anything like that. I paid for this with my own money. But I think they do have a few other options out there, so you can always do your research and see if there's another one. Like if your horse doesn't prefer Gallagher's water, you can try another one. But that's another way that you can kind of add some extra water to their diet, help keeping them cool. Another thing that I would say, and this is kind of like, I want to say I saw it on like TikTok or Facebook, like enrichment for horses and stuff like that, but if you have a small bunk container, so the key is to make sure that it's a bunk container so that when you take this out, like it'll have basically the hole in the middle so that you can tie it up. So there's 2 ways. You can take like hay string from your horse bale, and you can either do like a red Solo cup and basically put the hay string in there, put water in there, apples, shredded carrots, blueberries, strawberries, whatever treats your horses like, you can put that and then freeze it. So if you do that with this, so you can put all that in here, fill it with water, and then when you take this out, after you freeze it, you can put it in a liquid container. So, basically when you take that out, it'll have the hole in the middle, so you can put that on there, and then hang that in the pasture, hang it in their stall, hang it on the fence line, wherever it works. But it's basically like a horse popsicle. And, you can do that. The one with the red Solo cup that I saw on TikTok, again, you put the hay string in the cup, fill it with water, and put the fruit in it or anything like that. You can even freeze some of this Gallagher's water. But, once you freeze it, you can just basically break away the red Solo cup or something like that. And, again, horse popsicle. So I've only done that once or twice with Maya and Alvin. I don't know why I don't do it more, so I probably will start doing it more. But I know like Maya loves it when I put like chopped up carrots in it, and so yeah, they really like that. So it's just a good like treat for your horse, keeping them cool. So it's basically a horse popsicle, and it also keeps their mind entertained. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the next thing. So kind of in combination to the horse popsicle, like I was just talking about, is if you are able to feed horse treats that have moisture already in them. So I know Maya and Alvin like strawberries, blueberries, watermelon, cantaloupe, even like carrots, everything obviously in moderation because they are treats. But instead of feeding like the horse treats that are like dried up little crumbles, which are great, but again, this video is trying to help them stay cool, add extra moisture to their diet, stuff like that. But a few things are going to be adding treats into their diet that already contain moisture. So they're just good summer treats. And the horses love the blueberries at my house, so they will see me picking blueberries at the bushes, and they will walk over and I'll have to give them a little handful of blueberries. But again, just watch how much you feed your horses, and if you have any questions, if it works with your horse or not, if they have any restrictions, just make sure that you take that into account before you feed it to them. My next tip, this is I think number 13. This is kind of a no duh moment, but a water trough. So make sure that your horses have ample water. If you have a lot of horses in a herd, make sure that you don't have a horse guarding the water trough, and make sure that you have plenty of water for all the horses to go around. So I actually had to get a very specific water trough because Maya was constantly playing in the ones that were more long. So that's a big one too. Just make sure, if they have access to a pond and they can play in the pond, that's awesome. I do not have that, unfortunately. Maybe one day. It'd be great, but you know, basically you want to make sure that they have ample amount of water. If you're able to keep it in the shade, that's great, but obviously if there's trees around, make sure that there's not a lot of leaves that keep getting into it, because two main things other than the amount of water you want to keep for your horses, like you want to keep out, you want to make sure there's plenty of water, but you also want to make sure that the water is clean. So Alvin is very particular with his water, obviously. Like, he wants crisp and clean water. He's very bougie, which is fine, but he definitely consumes more water when everything is fresh and sparkling clean. So that is one thing. Just make sure your troughs are kept clean. And I've found on like Facebook and Instagram and stuff, like some people put like copper in the water to help keep the water trough cleaner longer. Again, I have not personally used this. It's just an idea if you want to do your own research and see if that might work for you and your horses. But other than making sure that the water trough is clean, you want to make sure that even if it does look clean, make sure that you stick your hand in it and make sure that it is cool. If it's sitting out in the sun all day, or if even it's not all day, I know here, if it's just a few hours, the water can get warmer. So especially the type of containers that we put water in, like if they're the metal ones or even these black like tubs. So I have one here and I have another bigger one over here, but basically, you know, that can get warm very quickly all on its own. So you want to make sure that the water that you are offering them is cool water. Obviously it'd be the equivalent of us being hot and then making hot tea, so we're obviously not going to be drinking that as much as we would want to if we're already hot. So that's another big one, just some things you may not think about with your water trough. You may think like, oh, this looks like it's full, it's fine. Make sure that the temperature of the water is satisfactory for your horses. Okay, so another way that may seem obvious, but I'm gonna put it out there, is to hose your horse. So during the peak heat of the day, sometimes I will come out and hose the horses. They actually will play in the hose, and it cools them off for a little bit. A lot of places, if you want to hose your horse, like on their neck, like that's where their jugular is, so that's a good place to hose them because it goes, you know, throughout the whole body. Hose the big muscle groups as well. So I like to start at the legs and just kind of work my way up so that they can kind of be more acclimated to the cold water. And, you know, it's kind of like us being hot and somebody just spraying you with a wet hose, like all of a sudden. It's just, give them a minute to get acclimated to the cold water. And so basically that's going to help cool their system. So horses are really good at thermoregulation. So, but we domesticate them and then we ask them to do things like jump, do barrels, anything like that. We ask them to do things that they wouldn't normally do in the wild. So personally, my opinion, we domesticate them. We have to take care of them. They are living in our life. They're not living the natural life where they are moving 24/7. So we want to make sure that we are giving them every opportunity to accommodate anything that they may be lacking that they wouldn't normally be lacking in the wild. So hosing the horse is a big one, especially, like I said, if you don't have access to, like, if your horses don't have access to a pond or something like that. Some horses are even in the pond, like, they are afraid of, like, big bodies of water, so they may not even go in a pond. So hose your horses off. If you hose them and then you put them in, like, a fan, that's really great. So it really helps keep the water cool and they stay cooler longer. But hose those big muscle groups. Like, I will hose, like, underneath their back legs, all of like their butt area and their shoulders, and obviously their neck, you know, but basically any big muscle groups, anywhere where like big veins or arteries are, that's gonna to really cool the bloodstream off. So that's a good one. So make sure that you are hosing your horses and make sure that you are you know, helping them stay cool, especially if you're asking them to do any type of work. Speaking of putting your horses into work, make sure you are choosing a time that is good for your horse of when you choose to exercise them. So the peak of the day where it is extremely hot, it does not take long for a horse to overheat. If you want to go ahead and research what are some of the signs of heat exhaustion, heat stress, you know, any of that, for your horse, make sure that you do know what those signs are so that, you know, you can mitigate that as much as possible and take action as soon as possible. So, you know, again, we ask them to do things that they wouldn't normally do, so it's only fair for us to be their best advocate. So make sure that, you know, you are choosing a good time as to when to exercise them. So this, you know, this may not be exactly what some people want to hear, but, you know, do things that are easy for your horse. You know, make sure that it is good for them. The horse should always come first. Not a ribbon, not a buckle, not showing off, anything like that. Your horse should always come first. So if this is going to put your horse into any danger, like when it's like 110 degrees at my house, I'm not exercising my horses. So, you know, no competition or trail ride or anything like that is worth it to me for the safety of my horses. So another obvious one is probably going to be fans. If you have a way to add fans in your pasture with like in your lean-to, that is going to help them stay cool. It's going to move air. It's also going to help keep flies and bugs away that might be annoying and cause stress, which is actually going to be my next tip. But, you know, make sure that your fans are clean so that they're moving the most air. You can have fans in your barn aisle. That's a big one that moves like the fan throughout the whole barn. It just keeps the circulation going. It may be moving hot air, but there's nothing worse than just stagnant, hot, still air. So just keeping those fans going. Another thing that I do, let me see if you can see it in Alvin's stall, but if you see his fan, so basically what I do is I make sure that the fans that specifically go in their stalls are tilted. So if they lay down at night, they're still able to get airflow. It's moving airflow by their legs, you know, but I do bring mine in at night just because the mosquitoes are terrible where I live, and I do not have a lean-to built or any electricity in my pasture. And there's some other reasons why I choose to bring my horses in at night. Some people choose to turn their horses out at night only and bring them in during the day to help them stay cool, and also, you know, depending on your horse's color, if you don't want them to fade, that would be one. Or like I mentioned earlier, if your horse is more prone to sunburn, maybe turning them out at night, bringing them in during the day is a better option. Again, everybody has their own opinion. I'm just doing what works best for me and my horses and my current situation of where I live and the climate that I'm in. So just do what works best for you and your horse. But I know, like, back in the day, so I've been into horses for like over 20 years, and I used to do the like the regular box fans. Well, now, like, I do the ones that I can get from like Lowe's, like the black wire fans, and they're able to pivot a lot better than the box fans, and they move a lot more air. And also, when it starts getting like cooler, you can kind of turn them down a little bit. But to me personally, you know, at this point in 2024, they're almost the same price as the box fan. Not much bigger of a difference. So, and it moves so much more air. So, that's a big one. Offer your horses a fan, some type of air movement if you're able to, and let them have access to that. Following up with the fans, if you have a barn, and whether the you know, the floor is like, I have a clay pad in my barn, if it's concrete, if you are able to, obviously if it's not your barn, ask permission to make sure that you can do this. But if you hose the barn aisle, and especially if you have a like big aisle, like alleyway fan, if you hose the barn aisle, it does bring the barn down about 5-10 degrees depending on the barn itself. So I had an old cowboy when I was about 12 years old. He would always do that, and I would ask him, I'd say, Mr. Jimmy, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And, you know, just a couple times a day during the peak heat of the summer, he would hose off the concrete floor in the barn, and the big fan in the front would just go down the alleyway, really, and significantly cool it off. It doesn't last super long, obviously, but it does help keep dust down. But it was pretty significant. You could feel the difference in the air once doing that. So that's another one. If you want to try that, give it a go. If you try it and you don't think it works, it's fine. But it's just something, again, that works for me. So I wanted to throw it out there to you as an option. So you might be wondering, why do I have Zebra hanging up behind me? My next thing is going to be that you're going to want to control flies, any type of fly control for your horse. So the flies are very bothersome for our horses. Some act more stoic about it than others, but when they're getting in their ears, stomping their feet, getting on their, their bellies and stuff where they can't necessarily scratch, it does increase stress. So you do not want your horse to be stressed during the heat. So that's obviously going to keep them hotter than usual. So Maya looks pretty ridiculous in the summer sometimes, especially during the peak season with horse flies and gnats and stuff like that. She will have on her Zebra fly sheet from Tough One, and she also has on like her fly mask with the ears. She also has on her shoe fly leggings that are pink, so she just looks pretty hilarious walking around in the pasture. Alvin has his fly mask as well, but something to note that Alvin, so he's just, he's just a chestnut. Because he's not dark and because he's not hot-blooded, the bugs do not bother him near as much as Maya. And the other thing with fly control is if your horse is more thin-skinned, like a thoroughbred, you want to make sure that you're protecting their skin. Again, not like what I mentioned earlier, just for like sun protection, but you also want to protect them from the bugs. So they do feel it more than horses that have maybe a thicker coat, thicker skin, that are not hot-blooded, stuff like that. So again, take into account your horse. If you find that they are stomping more and swishing their tail more, shaking their head more than maybe their pasture mate, then you might want to consider adding some fly gear to their routine. So I'm lucky enough that I get to work from home, so I can check them all day, every day, and basically make sure that they're keeping it on, because they will take it off of each other eventually. And Maya will actually take off her own fly boots, and she's pretty smart about it, so it's kind of funny to watch. And then sometimes it's annoying because I feel like I just put it on and she will take them right off. But if you have horses, you already know. I'm not telling you something you don't already know. But basically, fly control. I have the Zebra one. This is just personal opinion, but I've read some studies where the zebra print will confuse the horseflies a little bit. So anything lighter colored, like horseflies are attracted to dark and heat. So Maya is hot-blooded and dark, so the flies flock to her. So anything I can do to kind of help her out with the horseflies, I will do. So she is wearing the Zebra Tough One fly sheet. Alvin has one as well, but I don't need to put it on him near as much as Maya. But obviously pick a fly sheet that works best for you and your horse. Even some offer like full face. They have a hood, they have the ones that go on their neck, belly wraps, all of that. So it can get even crazier looking than the one that I have for Maya. So I may actually invest in one of those one day to kind of give her a little bit extra protection. But fly gear is a big one. You don't want your horses stressing during the heat. And I will check and make sure that she's not sweating a lot under it. So it is still an extra layer during the heat of the day. But I find she's still staying cooler than if she's out there stomping, running, bucking, rearing. She gets pretty mad about getting bit with bugs, which who can blame her? But I want to make sure that I'm giving her every opportunity to be able to rest in the shade and not stomp. The fly boots are great. I've done another video and a review on the shoe fly leggings. So if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll link it down below in the description so you can check that out. Another thing, with the fly boots is it does help when they're not stomping as much, they're not chipping up their hooves as much. So kind of like us marching, versus just walking, it really helps save their hooves. And also it's, you don't need like shin splints and all of that, just from standing there constantly stomping their feet. So that's, a few reasons why I do the fly leggings, the fly sheet, and the fly mask and everything. All the fly masks I get all have like ear protection so that the gnats aren't getting into their ears. I don't really like to put a lot of, I don't like putting things in their ears just because of the way the horse's ears are shaped. I don't want anything going down into their ears. So I like providing fly masks that have the ear protection. So again, that's just personal preference, but make sure that you are offering some type of fly protection for your horses, especially during peak seasons, and so that they're not out there stressing, running, bucking, anything like that, if they do anything like Maya does when she feels like she's getting attacked. So that's another thing that you can do. Alright guys, so that was my 15 things that I just wanted to kind of throw out there for you to have as options this summer to help keep your horses cool. Some of them are fun, like I said, the horse popsicles. I might start making Maya and Alvin one today, and I'll do a short of it whenever I do it, so keep an eye out for that and see how they like that. But if you have any like questions or anything like that, go ahead and comment down below. If you have any tips, you know, go ahead and share them down below in the description so we can all learn from it. And you know, if you liked this type of content, go ahead and like the video so that I know this is the kind of content you guys like to see. And if you wanted to see any future videos, go ahead and subscribe. It really means a lot to me as I try to grow my channel. Plus it really shows me what kind of content you guys are liking to see. But other than that, I will see you on the next video, and I hope you're staying cool during this summer heat. So I want to show you guys Maya eating her blueberries. She loves them. Can't forget Alvin. And that is the most accurate sign you will see today. Alvin loves them too. Alright, I'm gonna get these guys turned out before they hurt me, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye guys.